What is happening, everybody? Joelsuf coming your way. Give you a nice little thing to listen to and indulge in before my next rebooking the Netflix video, which will be on Monday. You'll see that on Monday in 3 days. I can't wait for part 2. Can't wait to make part 2. I hope you can't wait to watch part 2. But yeah, so it has been 15 years to the day that One Night Stand 2005 ECW's Homecoming pay-per-view that was sponsored by WWE came out. It was a big deal, okay? And also, it's been 15 years since Hardcore Homecoming, which was another homecoming show that had different performers, came out. And that was more underground. That was more independent stuff like that. I own both DVDs. I lost my my copy of Homecoming, of Hardcore Homecoming, but One Night Stand I still have. And yeah, so I want to take this time to just talk about that a little bit and reminisce on not only the show itself, but how ECW kind of changed the wrestling business as a whole, and what I was going through, I guess, in 2005. So let's start with how ECW changed everything. So in the mid-90s, wrestling in the mid-90s was really it was pretty lame. It was pretty bad. Well, the match quality was pretty good. It was starting to get really a lot better than the late 80s and early 90s for sure. Especially in the mid-80s. Ooh. Like, if you watch those Hulk Hogan matches and stuff like that, and all these big dudes who were 6'7", weighed 350 or 280 or whatever, these guys can't work. And fans weren't having it by the 90s. They were like, alright, screw this. This is getting old. It's old hat. We're sick of all this nonsense. And so WWE and WCW started to showcase younger talent who were not overgrown, overgrown built muscle guys, roided up dudes, and these guys who could really work decent matches. And so you saw that with WCW in the early 90s, and you saw that with WWE in the mid 90s. But despite all that, something was missing. Both organizations were really gimmicky, and it was almost like you were watching a live action cartoon. It really was. And I remember that when I was an adolescent. That's why I knew that wrestling wasn't, completely real, that it was all staged. One, it was televised, so how could it possibly be real? It's televised. You know what I mean? It's fixed in some way, And two, I knew that there was some kind of choreography going on. Because it's who would actually do that in an actual wrestling match? No one. You know what I mean? But whatever. So, that was my little opinions of it when I was growing up, when I was an adolescent, the mid-90s. And then it's the middle of the night, I can't sleep. So I sneak over to the living room, because my room didn't have cable TV. They wanted only one room, which was the living room, to have cable TV in my apartment, because my dad wanted to save money, no matter, at all costs. So he was even though it was only cost about $5 more to put cable in my room, my dad really wanted that $5. So he only had cable in the living room. And so I sneak over to the living room just to flip channels, whatever. It's 1 in the morning. I can't sleep. I'm just whatever, I don't care. And then so I'm switching through MTV, VH1, they're playing just music videos, whatever. And then I stop on Sunshine Network. This is in 1990, probably 90s, late 95, early 96. And I see wrestling. And I'm scratching my head, I'm this isn't WWE or WCW. What is this? And I see I think the match I saw, or the segment I saw, was when I think it was when Brian Lee, 911, Brian Lee, whatever, chokeslams Tommy Dreamer through like a billion tables, like from the roof of from the upper deck of the building that they're in, which was the ECW arena. Like 85% of ECW shows back then were in the ECW arena because they weren't, they didn't have they weren't traveling nationally yet, or at least not around the entire country. They hit a lot of places. They're popular in South Florida, which is what and Sunshine Network is based in Florida, so that's why I was able to see it, and I was like, whoa. So that was like the first time I was like, wait a minute, maybe this is not planned, because who would plan that? And so, yeah, that's how I got into ECW, and pretty much whenever I could, I would I'd look it up on TV Guide and be like, okay, hardcore TV's on at this. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and watch it on mute. I had to watch it on mute because I didn't want to wake up my parents. It was on I think it was on either 12:30 or 1 or something like that. It was like right after David Letterman, which my parents didn't allow me to watch. I was able to watch it on my own TV because it had network. So right after David Letterman, I would watch hardcore TV. It wasn't every day. It was I think it was every week. It was just like Raw and Nitro. So yeah, that was how I got into ECW. As far as how ECW changed the business. So, you didn't see a lot of really violent matches in wrestling in the early and mid-90s. If you did want to see that, you'd need to go out of your way. You would need to watch IWA, FMW, and most of New Japan, that kind of stuff. But was that stuff available in the United States? Not in the mid-90s. It was definitely not. You had to be a tape trader in the mid-90s for that. And I follow a couple people who have been tape traders. I think GMW, Good Mic Work was. I think also Solo Monster. I think he also did tape trading, but I don't really remember if he did or not. I know GMW does. So that guy's cool. Follow his channel. I'm trying to model my style like his, but with much lower budget. Anyways, yeah. So, and NWA in the South, like in Georgia, Alabama, and stuff like that, in the Southern, in the Bible Belt, those kind of places, in Midwest, they had some particularly ridiculously violent, even worse than ECW. Just almost as bad as XPW and Combat Zone in the late 80s. So that was like the last time that fans in the United States were privy to matches where you could land unprotected weapon shots and stuff like that, and where you could like physically cut another guy open and like powerbomb chicks through tables and stuff like that, which would never happen. Like a dude doing that to a chick these days in a row, man, women's movements would go crazy, and they would be like, "Nah, cancel this shit." But you can have a chick put a dude through a table. Why not? I don't want to go there though. I ain't doing gender politics. I'm not on this channel. But yeah, so, whoops. Anyways, yeah, so, but the effect that ECW stuff had on the business is that it came at a time, it was like the right place, right time. It really was. Because wrestling across the board, whether it was WWE or WCW, was ass in 1995. It was so bad compared to even the year after, which wasn't much better. But at least in '96, you had Michaels versus Brett on WWE. You had Austin winning the King of the Ring '96, and beating a very burnt out and drugged up, you know, Jake Roberts, who really shouldn't have been on TV at all in 1996. And they had the New World Order and WCW, but as okay as WWE's programming was in '96, and as good as WCW's was in '96, ECW in 1996 was the best television you'll ever watch. Whether it's wrestling or anything else. Like the storylines and angles were amazing. They had performers who could work really well, even around the ridiculous violence. Yeah. So, I mean, Raven versus Sandman. Oh my God. Yeah. It was. Hey, I just sounded like Joey Styles there. Haha. Yeah. So, and even in '97, like as awesome as WCW was, and as much momentum as WWE was gaining, ECW was just had it all. It had everything. It had everything you could ask for. You know what I mean? And that was especially true in 1995. And what that did was that it changed the expectations that fans had. Because wrestling fans, they have, and always have had, ridiculous expectations. Let's go back 5 years ago with the Royal Rumble, and Daniel Bryan enters the Rumble, and everyone's expecting him to win. Everyone wants and expects him to win, and if they don't win, then they riot. If he doesn't win, then the fans riot. It could have been anyone other than Roman Reigns who won the Rumble 15. The fans would have booed the result out of the building anyways. It wouldn't have mattered. And it's because of ECW's programming that kind of sparked that sense of expectation that the common wrestling fan now has. When you tuned into ECW, you were expecting ridiculous violence. You were expecting chicks to beat each other up in their bra and panties. You were expecting really good matches from really good performers. You were expecting, heart-wrenching, emotional storylines and stuff like that. And you expected it almost every night, every time it came on. And those expectations carried over to WCW and WWE's programming as well, to where you now have the common fan who is a little bit younger than me, but they still know like about what happened in the late 90s and the early 90s, because they were alive and they were little kids back then. So they may have had an older sibling, or even their folks, even their parents are probably in their 40s, and they deeply remember WWE Attitude and ECW and other stuff like that. And that's caused fans to have ridiculous expectations. And yeah, so that's the effects that ECW had on the wrestling business as a whole. Now I want to talk about what I was doing with in 2005 when these shows came on. So in June 2005, I was taking care of my father, who had cancer. He told me he had cancer in spring break of that year of 2005. This was my last, or supposedly last, semester in college. I was going through a lot of stressful times. I didn't know what kind of job I was going to get after college. I really had no idea what I was going to do in my life at all. Now I know exactly what I want to do. But back then, when I was 23 years old, I had no idea. So I'm taking care of my dad and stuff like that. I'm still able to watch wrestling. And, because the only thing I could really do was watch wrestling and play video games back then. I didn't have internet at the house. So, I decided to buy a whole bunch of DVDs and stuff like that. And this One Night Stand DVD was what I bought. Because I couldn't order it on pay-per-view. Because I didn't want to. So I'd rather wait for it to come out on DVD. And I would come back for one final semester in college, because there was this one class where I did so bad that I failed it. So I didn't graduate on time. My dad was really mad about that. He was mad about that because he was dying and he wanted to see his son finish college before he freaking died. And I have a feeling that he knew he was going to die pretty soon. So, yeah. But, anyways, that being said, that was what I was going through. So, and I remember watching the DVD like crazy. And I did buy, what's it called? The Rise and Fall of ECW a little bit before the One Night Stand DVD. I did buy that like during my last semester of college, like right before May. I remember seeing it I remember seeing it in my local Best Buy, and I bought it because I'm like, oh wow, I get to watch a whole history of ECW DVD, and that documentary is the best that WWE has ever produced. It's the best documentary ever. It's fantastic. I think it's almost 3 hours long, the documentary itself. It goes into detail about what ECW was going through and what they did and stuff like that. And what I didn't know was that Jeremy Borash in TNA Wrestling, he was doing a documentary as well. And that was called Forever Hardcore. And that's almost like a sequel. It's almost like a companion piece to the Rise and Fall of ECW. So if you want to get into ECW, this is almost like a how to get into ECW. Watch the Rise and Fall, and then watch Forever Hardcore. And from Forever Hardcore, you had Hardcore Homecoming. And Forever Hardcore came out a little bit after Hardcore Homecoming. So it came out about a year after the Rise and Fall of ECW. And that contained even more details because it had guys who were not on Rise and Fall. So it had Terry Funk and Sabu and Shane Douglas and New Jack and the Blue Meanie and Simon Diamond and stuff like that. So yeah, and but it didn't have Rob Van Dam or Tommy Dreamer and what else? And Stevie Richards and Al Snow and the Dudleys and stuff like that. That you find those guys talking on the Rise and Fall of ECW, and this also connects to the respective shows. So also Raven was also on Forever Hardcore and performed at Hardcore Homecoming. So let me go into the shows themselves. So One Night Stand was in the Hammerstein Ballroom. The Hammerstein Ballroom was almost like the second home of ECW. ECW, of course, had the ECW Arena, it goes through different names now. I think in 2005 it was called like the New Alhambra, like the New Alhambra Bingo Hall or something like that. It was really weird. On Swanson and Rittner Street. That's what they always, because those streets I guess never change, but the name of the arena changes. We'll just call it the ECW Arena for purposes of this discussion. Yeah, so One Night Stand 05 took place at the Hammerstein Ballroom. WWE had to dip its hands into it, so it's not a complete homecoming. It has some WWE elements in it. So they had upper mid carders and they had like bad guy upper mid carders from Raw and SmackDown who were invading, and they were talking about that on Raw and SmackDown before One Night Stand. So they don't arrive right out of the gate. The show starts with Joey Styles coming out, and he does his trademark, "Oh my God!" And the crowd pops, and you can tell that Joey Styles is holding back tears. He's like, "Oh my God, this is actually happening? Holy shit!" Yeah. So I don't remember the exact match order, even though I watched the show last night on the network, whatever. I think it starts with Jericho versus Lance Storm, and supposedly this was Lance Storm's final match. I don't think that was. I think he did a few more matches, just on independence, just to work with younger guys. Um, and you see at the end of the match, you see a reuniting of the Impact players. So Just Incredible comes out and he hits Jericho, and that's the finish. And Lance Storm gets the pin, and you see Dawn Marie and Lance Storm and Just Incredible all back together, which is really cool. Good stuff. And then Pitbull Gary Wolf does a pre-tape, and he says, yo, there's some guys who couldn't be here tonight because they're watching from the best seats in the house, meaning they're not with us, and it shows a whole bunch of ECW guys who have died, and and something I didn't remember was how young these motherfuckers were. Holy crap! Like, most of them were born in the late 60s, and they died in the early 00s. And the one that really got to me, and it got to the fans too, is Chris Candido, who died, I think weeks before One Night Stand 05 was filmed, and Hardcore Homecoming. Hardcore Homecoming took place like a day before One Night Stand. So, yeah. And that one really got to me, Chris Candido. Man. And Big Dick Dudley, he was only like 38 or so. A lot of these guys who died in ECW were like in their late 30s, early 40s. The only one that was really like, okay, that makes sense, was the original Sheik, and he was like 80 something. You know what I mean? But even though Rocco Rock, he was like, I think like 42. Like, man. And Pitbull, too. Pitbull, Anthony Durante, he was only like 39 or so, 37, 38. As old as I am. And I'm still kicking, I'm still good. It's like, wow. And that just goes to show what kind of stuff these performers did. All the drugs they were on, the injuries they got from the violent matches. And I'm really glad, it sucks you don't see all the blood and stuff like that, but like, it's a good thing, because now these wrestlers can live longer, they can enjoy their lives a lot more, and it's really good. You know what I mean? Versus back in the mid-90s, you had a 1 in 2 chance of living after doing these matches, and it shows. You know what I mean? It's crazy how, Dreamer is still alive, and Sandman's still alive, and Raven is still alive, and stuff like that, which is good, Anyways, next match is a triple threat, I think, featuring Rey Mysterio, who got booed, or got like a meh reaction. You could tell there was a lot of editing in the network version, and even in the DVD. Even in the DVD, there's a little bit of editing, but you could tell like the editing was like kind of like, they had to edit out boos from Rey Mysterio. It was pretty crazy. It was Rey Mysterio versus no, I'm sorry. It was I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No, that was a 1-on-1. Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis. And Psychosis takes off his mask. And I'm like, that was the first time I remember even when I watched this 15 years ago. I was like, whoa, I never seen Psychosis without his mask. Because I did watch those matches in 1995 on Sunshine Network. And so I'm like, what in the world? Damn, he looks normal without his mask. That's not right. And so Mysterio gets the win, and he gets booed out of the building, kind of. Again, like, the editing just shows, like, it shows some fans, like, golf clapping and stuff like that. And that wasn't the second match on the card. I think that was the third match on the card. The match before that was Little Guido with the FBI, which was Big Guido. It was Tony Mamaluke, Tracy Smothers. It was really cool to see Tracy Smothers and JT Smith. So all of them, but it was just Little Guido in the match against Yoshihiro Tajiri, who was with Mikey Whipwreck and Sinister Minister. And it was cool to see Sinister Minister too, because he was also signed on to TNA Wrestling at the time. And he's one of my favorite managers ever. And then with no one at ringside was Super Crazy. And I think Super Crazy gets the win here. But yeah, so you see, and this show is, One Night Stand is very true to the original ECW in that every match is overbooked. That's how ECW was. Everything was overbooked. It was like death by booking. It was like, oh, let's put everyone in every match. like I say, that's how things are today. Not like overbooked like matches, but overbooked shows. Now everyone gets to be on WrestleMania. Everyone gets to be at Survivor Series. Everyone gets to be at SummerSlam. Everyone gets to be at the Royal Rumble. It wasn't like that back in the day, but now it is because of ECW. So, sometime during the show, you see the Raw or the SmackDown guys come in, and JBL gets on the mic and he says, I could sell out Madison Square Garden, which is like right next to this place, and like ECW has this big reunion, and yet you fill up Hammerstein, which is like nothing. Come on, guys. And then Angle gets on the mic, and oh my God, the fans like despised Angle. Wow. And they were chanting, "You suck dick, you suck dick." The chants were there. Them chants. Which I loved when I was an adolescent. I still like them now. The only thing that I really that carried over from ECW, from old ECW, that I still enjoy were the chants, and Sinister Minister and Raven. Everything else, though, man, everything else, I'm like, I'm glad that's gone. But yeah, so fancy chanting, "You suck dick" to Angle. And Angle gets on the mic and he says, "Your mom taught me how." Angle. God. Yeah. Angle was just, wow. And Angle goes, when I saw that, even, like, no matter how much I watch One Night Stand, I kind of watch it every June 12th. But every time I watch it, I go like, I have to pause and laugh at that comeback line from Angle. Because it's like, dude, you, like, kind of dissed everybody in the room, including yourself, when you did that. How do you come up with that, man? He says, oh, I walked on to ECW and left early because it sucked. And then he's like, oh, it still sucks, and this is awful. And then Joel Gertner comes up. Well. Yeah, that guy. And he didn't do any innuendo poems like he did back in the day, which was kind of like a letdown. But, he was just like, he was just trying. Maybe he was like attempting to do like an insult like that to JBL, and then JBL just beats him up. So yeah, and then they cut to. Yeah, and then Joey Styles says like, "Oh, roll anything, get these guys off the screen," and it shows like almost like a highlight version of the Rise and Fall VCW DVD, where it shows particular moments and segments and matches from ECW in the 90s and all the way up until 2001. And it does this, like, I think 3 times during the entire show. So the first one, it has like the night the line was crossed and stuff like that, where it had Shane Douglas versus Sabu versus Terry Funk, and it went over an hour. It has the Sandman, like, pretending to be blind and stuff like that, and then he takes off the thing, and it's not blind anymore, and he beats up Dreamer and stuff like that. It was him turning into a good guy, because he was a bad guy back then, but then he turned into a good guy. That was kind of cool. It shows the chair shot heard around the world, where it was Raven versus Dreamer in a cage match, and Raven wins, but Dreamer, like, handcuffs Raven, and then like runs at him full speed with a chair and just clobbers Raven. Like, that was just ridiculous to watch. And stuff that I barely caught when I was an adolescent watching ECW on Sunshine Network. So even when I saw this DVD and the documentary, I was like, oh wow, I didn't remember a lot of these moments, a lot of these segments from the TV shows. So yeah, it was really cool to see that. It's just like a little 4-minute spot, and then you have, let's see, I forget what match comes on next. I think it was Eddie Guerrero versus Chris Benoit, and oof, Chris Benoit. Just mentioning his name, oh my god. This was about a month after Eddie Guerrero turned bad against Rey Mysterio. So they have an okay match for those two guys. And oh yeah, Foley is also doing commentary. I forgot to add that. Is that after Joey Styles introduces himself and ECW and the show, he announces that there's going to be another guy doing color commentary with him, and that was Mick Foley. I'd rather have not have seen that. I understand that Foley has a lot of contributions to ECW, but ECW is nothing. ECW was meant for Joey Styles to just do complete color commentary on his own. It was meant for him to do play-by-play on his own. And I think you get that at Hardcore Homecoming and not One Night Stand. Well, may not be. I think it is, yeah. I think Hardcore Homecoming is just Styles just on his own. But yeah, so. And Foley is hyping up Benoit versus Guerrero. He's like, oh, we've never seen this. And, we've never seen them in work together in ECW. And that's really cool to see. And the match was I think in shoot interviews, they both say in the shoot interviews that took place after, on select shoot interviews, both of them said that they did not like their performance at all. So it is what it is. And then Rob Van Dam comes out, then Rob Van Dam comes out, and he starts rolling and he goes into a pretty long promo segment, like a 15-minute promo segment, and he stares up. He looks up at the Crusaders, the SmackDown guys, and he says, "Look, this doesn't concern you. You have nothing to do with this. Let us have our fun, whatever." And he got injured, and he's and then he goes on and on about how he introduced this concept of Vince McMahon, and he said, "Yo, McMahon, you should do this because they did Hardcore Homecoming. You may as well do One Night Stand." And that kind of stuff. And Rob Van Dam says, "Oh, this is worse than missing WrestleMania. It's worse than missing Booker T's wedding. Apparently he was buddies with Booker T. It's really unfortunate." And then Rhino comes out, and then that's right, he's out there with Bill Alfonso, and he asks Alfonso, he's like, "How long did I have that TV title?" And Alfonso's like, "Oh, you had it for 600 days." And yeah, so, and Rhino comes out and gores, and gores Rob Van Dam. Then the lights go out, and you know what that means. It means Sabu's gonna come out, and Sabu comes out, and he has a match against Rhino. And even though Van Dam's hurt, they let him do a spot. They let him do his Van Daminator to Rhino at the end of the match, and Sabu wins. And it's cool to see Sabu here because Sabu was also signed to TNA Wrestling in 2005. That was the thing about the up until we'll say the late 00s, is that if you were in TNA Wrestling, you could still perform in WWE if they wanted you, if they let you, you know what I mean? And they let Sabu do this, so it's good. So he was also at Hardcore Homecoming, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, so. And then Al Snow, they have a little pre-tape with Al Snow talking ahead. Or I don't think it's a pre-tape, but whatever. It's just him in the back. talking to Head, saying, "Oh, doing a promo with Head," and they cut to some more ECW moments and stuff like that. So yeah, and then after that, the Raw guys come out. So the Raw guys are now into the building, and and Joel Gertner's back, and now Joel Gertner's like, let me have a job on Raw, that kind of stuff. I don't know why they really did not book Joel Gertner like the way I wanted them to in this show at all. It's kind of weak. And then Bischoff says, "Hold my beer while I look at your stuff that you brought." And then Bischoff throws a beer in Gertner's face and says, "No, you're not getting a job here." That was kind of weak. And then Heyman comes out. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, then they have Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka. This match. Everyone says, anyone who's reviewed this DVD, this pay-per-view, says how great this match was. They had matches like 5 years before this that were like even more wild and more crazy. But yeah, this match is like the match of the show. And there is one spot though where Mike Awesome does a dive, and Joey Styles, he goes off on Mike Awesome, like when Mike Awesome makes his like little entrance, because Mike Awesome did a really shady thing in 2000 where he had the ECW title, and his contract was about to run out, and he signs a WCW contract like right after, or like while he is champion. And Styles mentions this, and he says, "Yo, he took a pay raise to go work for a dying WCW," that kind of stuff. And anyways, whatever. Yeah. So, and then Mike Awesome does a dive onto Tanaka, and Styles says, "Suicide dive," and it's a shame that Mike Awesome didn't take his own life. Yeah. And then 2 years later, what happens to Mike Awesome? He hangs himself. So I don't know if Joey Styles really is proud of saying that, but yeah, they have a fantastic match. I mean, it's amazing. It's a great match. And then Paul Heyman comes out after this match, and this is where he says a whole bunch of cool stuff. Among those is about Edge, and Edge goes, "I have 2 words for you, Matt freaking Hardy." This was like right when fans knew about Hardy being fired, and it's also a lot of fans found out that Lita was cheating on Matt Hardy with Edge and stuff. So yeah. And then he also says this to JBL. He says, "Here's the reason you were champion for a year. It's because Triple H didn't want to work on Tuesdays to do SmackDown." and JBL was like, he's like wasted drunk here. Like in the DVD, you actually get to like watch the show with like JBL like mic'd up, and you can just like, and he just drinks like crazy. Calling the workers like, "Oh, I think that guy repairs like my I think didn't that guy do my lawn a few days ago?" Like that kind of stuff. And then like when he hears that thing from Heyman, he like fakes having a heart attack. He goes like, "Oh my god, oh," like as if the words have no effect on him. So yeah, and in the beginning of the promo, you could tell Paul Heyman's like he was crying a river. He's like, "I'm not crying. I was smoking a joint with Van Damme in the back." So yeah, good stuff. And then the final match of the night, and the final segment of the night. The final match is a tag team match between Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman versus the Dudleys. course, this is how most ECW shows actually ended back in the day too. It's so weird how much they got, like how much they reflected ECW from 10 years prior to this. It's like you could watch this show and you could watch any given episode of Hardcore TV in 1995 and you would not know the difference. You would not. You'd be like, wait a minute, I just watched that. Only Styles was doing commentary on his own, and everything was pre-taped. But either way, it didn't matter. So this match gets gruesome. This match is ridiculous. Like 3 minutes into the match, everyone's already busted open, bleeding buckets. It's crazy. Cheese grated to the head. That spot. The only spot they didn't do was the stapling the dollar to the forehead, but that's a Raven thing. So then Raven wasn't on this show. It really would have been great if Raven was on this freaking show. But I guess Raven did not like WWE at all. Not in 2005. He was too big of a commodity in TNA wrestling anyways. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk about Hardcore Homecoming. Which I only remember like 3 matches of. So... yeah, big tornado tag team match brawl, because all tag team matches in ECW, pretty much all of them were tornado tagged because there were no disqualifications. Every match was a no DQ match in freaking ECW. And they held themselves to that in this match too, which in this show, which is really good. It's great to see that. Towards the end, Francine comes out and beats up Tommy Dreamer, kicks him in the nuts, and then Bill McGillicuddy comes out, and her and Francine have a cat fight. Of course, gotta have that spot. No shit. And then they do a spot where Tommy Dreamer and Bill McGillicuddy do a DDT on both Dudleys. Yeah, and that was kind of cool, and that led to a 2 count. And then flaming table spot, they had to do that, and that was like the final spot of the night. And they set a table on fire, and the Dudleys put Tommy Dreamer through it, and yeah, that's the end of the show. But not really. At the end of the show, Dudleys leave, and Sandman's like, get him a beer. He needs help. Get him a beer. Then Steve Austin comes out, and Austin's like, you said this dude needs a beer. Austin's like, oh, I got beer. And Austin's like, before I get him a beer, and before I get you a beer, before I get a beer for myself, I want to get a beer for everybody in ECW. And it was almost like they were redoing the Alliance thing, where Austin would tell people to hit finishers on people who disobeyed them, and then Austin calls out the Crusader guys, the guys from Raw and SmackDown, the mid-carders from Raw and SmackDown, and says, how about you guys come down here and try and kick their ass? Go ahead. Why not? And so Bischoff says, okay, let's do this. And so he brings out all the Raw and SmackDown guys, and they're all in the ring, and then Angle's like in the middle of all them, like leading the charge. Bischoff goes on commentary, and him and Joey Styles have like a little screaming match, and Foley's like, yo, I liked WCW and ECW, but my God, you did so many people dirty, man. Ain't right. And Styles is like going off on Bischoff, saying, oh, if I was Ted Turner, I would have never hired you, that kind of stuff. So Angle comes out. Or not, it's the Crusaders versus the ECW guys, and then you hear Taz's music, and Joey Styles like busts a nut. He's like, it's Taz with 1 Z. It's the original Taz. Angle's gonna get it, and Angle's gonna get his. That kind of stuff. So, yeah, and then they have what big brawl. JBL, potato punches the Blue Meanie, and you could see like right here, like right in the temple, and just blood is just. And JBL got a receipt for that. The Blue World Order actually. I forgot to talk about that before the tag team match, before the Dreamer and Sandman versus Dudley's match. Overbooking, again, tons of overbooking. The Blue World Order come out and they said, "Oh, you can't have a crusade without, or an invasion, or a crusade, or an invasion without the Blue World Order. We're taking over." And then Balls Mahoney and Axel Rotten come out, and they brawl and stuff like that. And Kid Cash comes out and he jumps on everybody, which is crazy. He does a springboard backflip onto everybody. That was before the match even started, before the segment even. And yeah, so big brawl. Everyone, the Raw and SmackDown guys leave because the ECW guys beat them up, and you could see the giant gash on Blue Meanie's eye, and JBL would get a receipt for that. He would let Stevie Richards hit him really, really hard, unprotected chair shot on one edition of SmackDown in July, where it was the Blue World Order versus JBL. So yeah, so JBL got his. He apologized to Meanie. He said, "Yo, I didn't mean to hit you that hard. Sorry about that." That kind of stuff. So they made up, but that was pretty bad. And to end the show, Austin says to Foley, says, "Bring Bischoff over here." And Foley's like, "Sure." And so Foley brings Bischoff, and Austin says, "Oh, Mysterio, hit the 699 on him. Dudley's hit a Dudley death drop on him." I think he tells Dreamer to hit the Dreamer driver, or the Spicoli driver, one of those two, on him, and that ends the show. That ends ECW One Night Stand. Now, Hardcore Homecoming. So with Hardcore Homecoming, that had guys who were not in WWE. But it had guys who didn't want to perform at One Night Stand. So one of the I think the final match of that night was Douglas versus Funk versus Sabu. They were going to do that again, the 3-way dance that actually crossed the line and actually turned ECW Eastern Championship Wrestling into Extreme Championship Wrestling. I know it was after Douglas won the title, but it was the precursor to that was the night the line was crossed, and they put 1 hour time limit, and they had Mick Foley as the special referee for that match, and yeah, there was also Raven versus Sandman, which was really cool. And before those matches, I believe, you hear you get clips from before all the matches in Hardcore Homecoming, you get clips from the Forever Hardcore DVD. Which is really cool. I think they both came out at about the same time too. So yeah, and it was really cool to see that. It was awesome. And I think another featured match was Jerry Lynn versus I think it's either C.W. Anderson or Justin Credible. I can't really remember. But Hardcore Homecoming took place in the ECW arena. So that was even more reflective of what ECW was all about in the mid-90s, for sure. It's crazy how both these shows, both of them were a legit trip back in time. Of course, the wrestlers are 10 years older, some of them are not alive, that kind of stuff, but whatever, makes no difference. Yeah. So I can't say much about Hardcore Homecoming because I don't own the DVD anymore. I lost it. I'm so mad that I lost it. It's funny because I own that Platinum Edition that you see on the screen, and I only have the extras DVD, which the extras isn't really special with Hardcore Homecoming. It just has like clips of Forever Hardcore, and a few like unseen matches from ECW, but nothing that WWE didn't come out with about a year after with their Bloodsport DVD, which has ECW's like bloodiest matches like of all time, and some of those were also on Hardcore Homecoming's extra DVD. So yeah, and in Hardcore Homecoming, I do specifically remember that Joey Styles was doing the commentary on his own without anyone else, which is really good. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what's up. Oh yeah, I remember too. Raven, before his match against Sandman, he says that he's the only guy. He's the only guy in ECW who was in ECW, WWE, and in WCW, and he's like, I'm the only one with an action figure in WWE, ECW, both times he was there, in 1995 to 1997, and in 1999 to 2000, WCW and TNA Wrestling. And I'm like, I don't know why I specifically remember that promo. Oh, they also had New Jack. They had that's right. They had the Gangsters versus the Rotten Brothers. They had right. I think it was something like that. They had the Gangsters. So they had New Jack and Mustafa versus Axel and Ian Rotten. Ian Rotten is just an asshole. At least that's what I heard. But Axel's cool. And of course New Jack is New Jack, so he's gonna do New Jack stuff. Yeah. Or I think it was Axel Rotten and Johnny Grunge who they had a match with. Gangsters versus Grunge and Axel Rotten, because they didn't want Ian Rotten to be in the show because of his background. I don't really remember that. I don't really know for sure. But yeah, so they had that match. I do remember the Gangsters being there. And I think New Jack gets on the mic after the match and he says, "Oh, you're not gonna see me at One Night Stand or something like that because they don't want me, because they hate me," and that kind of stuff or whatever. I don't know, but yeah. So I don't know if both of these DVDs are in circulation. I mean, they're probably both out of print now. I mean, it's been 15 years since they came out. I still have my copy of One Night Stand, and I have half a copy of Hardcore Homecoming. But yeah, I watch One Night Stand every year. Every June 12th, I watch it, or June 11th, whatever. I watched it last night just so I could do this podcast today. But yeah, so that is my experience of two shows that came out 15 years ago that are forever dear to my heart. I mean, that's what kept me into wrestling was ECW. It really was. And then of course, WCW and WWE started incorporating ECW's programming, and then that was in the late 90s. That's when ECW was like, meh. You know what I mean? But yeah, so hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about this. Okay, so tune in on Tuesday. That's when I'm going to have the, what's it called? That's when part 2 of my rebooking the Nexus. That's when that's going to be out. I'm going to make the video on Monday. I've already written all the scripting out for it. And then it's going to be available and I'm going to release it on Tuesday. So yeah, do that. It'll be fun. Alright. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a good day, and take care of yourself and other stuff like that. And follow the channel. And I'm not gonna tell you to do that kind of crap that every other YouTuber does that nowadays. It's so weird. It's like, no, I'm not gonna tell you to smash the like button. I'm not gonna tell you to subscribe to the channel. You'll do those things if you want to, okay? You'll do those things if you want to. I guess I already did kind of ask you to do that. Whatever, who cares? Alright. Take care, everybody.